promise of rebellion and raw emotion echoes through the rain-soaked streets of Seattle, where one voice would forever change the face of rock music. Welcome back to our channel. Today, we explore the story of Kurt Cobain, a voice that defined an entire generation. Together with his band Nirvana, he achieved worldwide fame. But when he needed help the most, that same fame became his prison. His story is one of immense talent and profound tragedy. When success found him, it brought with it a weight he could never quite bear. He passed away in the prime of his youth, leaving behind a legacy that would inspire millions. This is the story of Nirvana and the great tragedy of Kurt Cobain. Early family life. Kurt Donald Cobain entered the world on February 20th, 1967 in Aberdeen, Washington, a small logging town that would later influence his raw, gritty musical style. Born to waitress Wendy Friedenberg and automotive mechanic Donald Cobain, young Kurt's early life was filled with music and creativity. His father's extensive record collection introduced him to everything from the Beatles to Led Zeppelin, planting the seeds of musical inspiration. Even as a toddler, Kurt showed an unusual affinity for music. He could sing Beatles songs before he could form complete sentences. His Aunt Murray would often remark that Kurt was different, more sensitive, more artistic than other children his age. As a fascinating detail that would later prove significant, Kurt's first musical creation wasn't a song, but a rhyme about his favorite childhood toy, a G.I. Joe figure he carried everywhere. His parents noticed his creative spirit early on, but like many artistic children in working-class families, Kurt's talent was seen more as a hobby than a potential career path. Everything changed when Kurt turned 9. His parents' divorce shattered his world, an event that would traumatically impact his entire life. In later interviews, he described this moment as the point where his childhood ended. "I remember feeling ashamed," he once said, "like there was something wrong with our family." This sense of shame and alienation would later fuel both his creative genius and his personal struggles. Rise to global stardom. September 24th, 1991 marked the day that would change not just Kurt's life, but the entire landscape of rock music. Nirvana's second album, Nevermind, their first with major label DGC Records, arrived in stores with little fanfare. However, its lead single, Smells Like Teen Spirit, was about to create a cultural earthquake that no one saw coming. The song's title has an interesting origin story. Kathleen Hanna, lead singer of the band Bikini Kill, had written on Kurt's wall, "Kurt smells like teen spirit." She was referring to a deodorant brand his then-girlfriend wore. The irony of this mundane origin for such a revolutionary song wasn't lost on Kurt. He would later joke about how the song that changed rock music was named after an antiperspirant. Within weeks of its release, the song's video dominated MTV's rotation. Nevermind was selling more than 300,000 copies every week. In a historic moment that symbolized a changing of the guard, the album knocked Michael Jackson's Dangerous off the top spot on the Billboard charts. The grunge revolution had begun, and Kurt Cobain, the sensitive boy from Aberdeen, was suddenly being hailed as the voice of a generation, a title that would become both his crown and his curse. The success was overwhelming. Nirvana performed on Saturday Night Live, toured worldwide, and received critical acclaim that few artists ever experience. But for Kurt, this massive success brought its own demons. The pressure to maintain their momentum, coupled with endless media attention, began to take its toll. As he would later write in his journal, "All the praise and attention made me feel more like a fake than ever." The darkness behind the spotlight. By 1992, while Nirvana's music conquered the world, Kurt was fighting battles that few understood. The crushing weight of sudden fame became unbearable, manifesting in a mysterious chronic stomach pain that would plague him for years. Despite visiting countless doctors and undergoing numerous tests, no one could properly diagnose his condition. As a devastating parallel to modern understanding, the pain was likely linked to anxiety and stress, but medical knowledge at the time didn't make these connections. To cope with the constant agony, Kurt turned to heroin, beginning a battle with addiction that would haunt him until his final days. The drug became both his escape and his prison. Those close to him noticed alarming changes, his skin growing paler, his already thin frame becoming gaunt. Despite his strong personality and ability to help others face their problems, Kurt struggled to acknowledge his own demons. In interviews from this period, he would deflect questions about his health with either humour or anger. As a revealing detail that speaks to the era's darker side, Kurt often performed while wearing multiple layers of clothing to hide his declining physical state. The music industry of the 1990s, much like that of previous decades, wasn't equipped to handle the mental health struggles of its biggest stars. While record sales soared, Kurt's inner world was crumbling. Love in the Time of Chaos in 1991 at a club in Portland, Kurt met Courtney Love, lead singer of the band Hole. Their connection was instant and intense, two kindred spirits who understood each other's pain and creativity. By February 1992, they married on Waikiki Beach in Hawaii, with Kurt wearing his pajamas and Courtney in a dress once owned by actress Frances Farmer. Within months, they welcomed their daughter, Frances Bean Cobain, named after Frances Farmer and chosen because Kurt thought she looked like a bean on the ultrasound. For a brief moment, it seemed Kurt had found the family stability he'd longed for since his own fractured childhood. Home videos from this period show a different Kurt, a devoted father, gentle and playful with Frances, spending hours creating art with her. However, the media's harsh spotlight turned their love story into tabloid fodder. A controversial Vanity Fair article suggested Courtney had used heroin while pregnant, leading to a temporary loss of custody of Frances. The parallels to Kurt's own childhood trauma became painfully clear. Once again, a family was being torn apart by forces beyond their control. As Kurt would later write in his journal, "The worst crime I could think of would be to pull people off by faking it, pretending as if I'm having 100% fun." The final masterpiece. In September 1993, Nirvana released what would become their final studio album, In Utero. The title, referring to the womb, reflected Kurt's deep preoccupation with themes of birth, childhood and protection, ideas that had become even more significant since becoming a father. The album's raw, abrasive sound marked a deliberate move away from the polished production of Nevermind. As a fascinating detail that speaks to Kurt's artistic integrity, he insisted on recording with producer Steve Albini, known for his harsh, uncompromising sound, despite the record label's serious concerns about commercial viability. Songs like Heart-Shaped Box and All Apologies showcase Kurt's evolving songwriting while hinting at his growing inner darkness. The album's release was followed by what many consider Nirvana's finest hour, their MTV Unplugged performance in November 1993. The set, decorated with lilies and black candles at Kurt's specific request, created an atmosphere that felt more like a funeral than a concert. His haunting cover of Lead Belly's Where Did You Sleep Last Night would become one of music's most memorable moments. As the camera lingered on his face during the song's final note, viewers caught a glimpse of something profound, a soul bearing its deepest pain through music. The final days. By early 1994, those closest to Kurt could see he was slipping away. In March, following a near-fatal overdose in Rome, Courtney Love and several friends organised an intervention. The scene was heartbreaking. Here was one of rock's most powerful voices, struggling to find his own. Kurt initially agreed to seek treatment and checked into the Exodus Recovery Center in Los Angeles. During his brief stay, he shared with counselors his deepest fear, that he was disappointing everyone who believed in him. As a painful parallel to many artists before him, the weight of others' expectations had become unbearable. However, after only a few days, Kurt climbed over the facility's wall and boarded a flight back to Seattle. What followed were days of uncertainty, as Kurt seemed to vanish into the city's rainy streets. On April 8, 1994, Kurt's body was discovered in the greenhouse above his garage at his Lake Washington home. He was just 27 years old, joining the tragic 27 Club alongside Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, and Jim Morrison. In his final note, Kurt wrote about his fear that Francis would grow up ashamed of him, echoing his own childhood trauma. The city of Seattle dimmed the lights of the Space Needle in his honor, while thousands of fans gathered in the streets below, singing his songs through their tears. A legacy that never fades. Kurt Cobain's influence on music and culture continues to resonate decades after his passing. Nirvana's brief but powerful career helped sell over 75 million records worldwide, fundamentally changing the sound of rock music. His former bandmate Dave Grohl would go on to form the Foo Fighters, channeling his grief into what would become one of rock's most successful bands. Frances Bean Cobain grew up to be an artist in her own right, carrying forward her father's creative spirit while forging her own path. As a touching detail that speaks to her dedication to preserving his legacy, she now owns the rights to Kurt's image and works tirelessly to support mental health awareness in the music industry. His journals, published posthumously, revealed a sensitive soul who struggled with fame and artistic integrity. In a testament to his lasting cultural impact, Kurt's famous MTV Unplugged sweater sold at auction for $334,000. But perhaps his most important legacy lies in how his story opened crucial conversations about mental health in the music industry. His battles with depression and addiction helped break the stigma surrounding these issues, though tragically too late for Kurt himself. The story of Kurt Cobain reminds us that sometimes the brightest flames burn out too quickly. His music continues to inspire new generations, while his struggles remind us of the importance of mental health awareness and support. As Dave Grohl once said, Kurt had something that none of us had, a vision that somehow resonated with millions. Today, Kurt's influence can be heard in countless artists who weren't even born when Nirvana was at its peak. His raw honesty in songwriting, his unique vocal style, and his commitment to artistic integrity have become blueprints for authentic musical expression. What's your favorite Nirvana song? What do you think about Kurt's impact on music and culture? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories about the legends who shaped our musical landscape. Until next time, remember Kurt's words: "It's better to burn out than to fade away."